Welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Ava plots with John and Steve to free Clyde. Ava summons Steve and John to her apartment to tell them about Clyde's phone call. He said, "If I ever want to see my son again, I need to break him out of captivity in the coming 24 hours, Ava said. Steve and John refused to break Clyde out. "But we do not have any other choice," Ava complained. Ava argued that Tripp and Wendy's lives depended on helping Clyde escape. John asked how Clyde had called Ava, and she told him about the phone stockpiled in her office. "Someone broke in then. That videotape said she was being covered," Steve noted. "How does Clyde anticipate you to break him out of Statesville?" John asked. Ava said that Clyde had ordered her to reach out to the Vitali family for help. John laughed resentfully. "There's no way that Clyde is going to hold up his end of the deal. You know that, right?" Steve asked. "We've to try. Because this could be the only way we see our son again," Ava contended. Ava advised Steve and John that they couldn't waste time. John told Ava that they had been making progress on the videotape. "But nothing definitive yet, right?" Ava asked. John jounced yes. "We do not have any other options. I need to break that bastard out of Statesville moment, and I need your help," Ava said. Frustrated, Steve yelled, "Damn it, Ava! Why did you have to get mixed up with Weston in the first place?" Ava told Steve to condemn her for the situation, but if he failed to help her and Tripp was killed, Steve would be the one to condemn. Emotional blackmail? Really? Steve murmured. Ava explained that she was out of options. "I know you are spooked. I am spooked, too. But we've to concentrate on what is important, and that is chancing Tripp and Wendy," Steve said. John suggested that they demanded to consider other options. "However, we've to be each in," Steve said, "if we do this." "I have got your reverse, chum," John said. With a shriek, Steve noted that if breaking Clyde out of captivity was the only way to save Tripp and Wendy, also that was what they would do. "Now that we are each on board, how are we going to pull this off?" Ava asked. John suggested they start with arrangements of the captivity and determine the kind of security system the captivity used. "However, we could vanish Weston into thin air," Steve joked, "if we had further time." "What if we can? What if it's just that easy?" John combated. Ava asked John what he'd in mind. John explained that he demanded to reach out to merchandisers for outfit. "What can I do?" Ava asked. "We're going to need help from your family members if we are going to pull this off," John said. Ava jounced yes. "I will make sure they are at the ready," Ava said. In the brewery fermenter tank, Tripp and Wendy woke up after a spastic night of sleep. Tripp talked about a Paris breakfast. "You have some enough deliciously pictorial dreams," Wendy said. "Well, it sure beats reality right now," Tripp murmured. Tripp noted that the only thing that made the experience sufferable was that Wendy was with him. Wendy said she felt the same way. As Wendy put her head on Tripp's shoulder, Tripp promised to give Wendy and precious Jim Day. "And what do you get?" Wendy asked. 3 weeks sitting on the settee, watching March Madness," Tripp said. Wendy chortled. Frustrated, Tripp started to pace the room. To calm Tripp, Wendy suggested they take an imaginary trip to Pisa. Wendy painted a picture of their Italian trip, and Tripp played along. "As long as I've you right beside me, it does not count where I spend the night," Tripp said. "I feel the same way," Wendy said. Tripp assured Wendy that they would survive their fire. There was a noise outside the door. When the door didn't open and the sounds continued, Wendy wondered audibly if the person outside was someone other than Goldman. "What if it's your pater? Or someone who can help us?" Wendy said. Tripp and Wendy rushed to the door and started to yell and bang on the wall. There was a creak outdoors. "What the hell was that?" Wendy said. After a moment, the clicking noise stopped. Tripp looked around the top of the tank. Wendy, the reflections are closed, Tripp said. How can you tell? Wendy asked. Tripp held up his hand. With gashes in his eyes, Tripp said, I do not feel any air movement. We are sealed in. Wendy started to have a fear attack. Tripp assured Wendy that they had time left. How important time? Wendy asked. Tripp said he didn't know. We are going to be okay, Tripp promised. Tripp encouraged Wendy to stay calm. Calm? What we've to do is get the hell out of then. We are going to die, Wendy said. Tripp pulled Wendy into a clinch to console her. In the DiMera living room, Stefan was pouring a drink when a bathrobe-sheathed EJ walked into the room. Why did you call me so late? EJ asked. Stefan asked E.J. For help. You cannot be serious. Forget it. Whatever you've done now, forget it, E.J. said. Stefan contended that E.J. was the only family that he'd left. E.J. combated that Stefan was a bug that would always seek trouble. I tried to avoid the dark path, I did. But effects got out of control and E.J. I need your help, Stefan said. Or what? Gabby might suffer another broken leg? E.J. combated. Stefan suffed. I need your help, or it's the end for me, Stefan said. E.J.'s smile fell down, and he asked what Stefan meant. Stefan confessed to J. that he'd shot Harris on Clyde's orders. What in God's name were you allowing? E.J. asked. You knew what position I was in. I had no choice, Stefan growled. E.J. argued that there was always a choice. When Stefan explained that Gabby would have suffered the consequences if he denied Clyde's order, E.J. rolled his eyes. Gabby, who brings nothing but trouble and misery into our lives. Yet you cleave to that woman. How in the hell did it come to this? E.J. asked. Stefan explained that the situation had grown dire because Harris was alive. How is that worse? E.J. asked. Because I did not finish the job. And because of that, because I failed, now Clyde is coming for me. Stefan said. E.J. chortled. I'm having serious dubieties that our gene pool truly overlaps, E.J. joked. Stefan apologized for what he'd done to help Clyde, and he informed E.J. that Harris knew he was the shooter. Harris wants me to help him take Clyde out, Stefan said. Stefan argued that if he helped the Bobbies, Clyde would have him killed. That sounds like a you problem, E.J. said. Have a heart, would you? For formerly. Stefan yelled. E.J. gave Stefan a warning look. I came to you because this thing has spun so far out of control and because you're my family, and I allowed. Perhaps, just perhaps, you would have an ounce of empathy for me. Not to mention, if you had helped me out the first time when I came to you, Stefan said. E.J. combated that he'd not let Stefan condemn him. I am not trying to condemn you for anything, I am simply saying that with your help, this situation would not have gotten out of control. But stupidly, I pulled that detector and this thing began to unravel. And now, I am out of options. This is life and death. I have got nothing left. I mean, what the hell am I supposed to do? Stefan asked. E.J. advised Stefan not to do anything. I'm going to call the police, E.J. said. E.J. advised Stefan to turn himself in. You know that going to the Bobbies is a surefire way to get me and Gabby killed. Come on. We are family. Stefan argued. E.J. prompted Stefan to be quiet since Nicole and Holly were asleep upstairs. Stefan looked over at Stefanos' portrait. However, he'd tell you to stand by me and do the right thing if father was still alive. That despite our differences, despite my miscalculations, he'd tell you to save family at all costs, Stefan said. E.J. suffed. So, you excessively bring our father's name in trouble to force me into mopping up your mess, E.J. said.